YouTube, how's it going? The Goat House is back here heading into Week 17. And you know, the Monday right after Week 17 ends is considered Black Monday, where all the head coaches that had poor performances or poor outings in this regular season are fired. And we got 12 coaches we're going to go over here. And I'm going to decide, or I'm going to predict if they'll be fired or if they will be kept around, if they'll be retained here. So 12 coaches, a lot of them are obvious, but they've actually, all of these ones have been brought up at some point on if they should be on the hot seat or not. We also got the fans involved. If you follow us on Twitter, you know what I'm talking about. We'll see what the fans think. We'll see what I think's going to happen. So really, I can't wait for Monday to see who's in, who's out, who keeps their job. It's going to be interesting. Follow our Twitter to get more involved, and there's constant NFL talking during live games on there. There's a link in the description comments for all of that, as well as the other links that you may need, including the Patreon. The Sided app is very cool. Follow our page on there. And then please subscribe. Full NFL coverage, even in the offseason with free agency. And this is technically an offseason video already, and we're not even done with the regular season. So, all right. Let's talk about Jon Gruden. You know, it might be an obvious one, but he's been brought up. You know, the Raiders kind of choked, missing out in the playoffs a little bit. I know the AFC was tough. There was no guarantee they're going to be in, even if they were winning, but they were in a pretty good position, and everyone, including myself, is starting to get kind of hyped on the Raiders, you know, more than a few weeks ago, but and they kind of just blew it, you know, especially the Dolphins game, where it was kind of a must-win to stick around, and poorly coached game. So keep or fire. What do we do with Jon Gruden? Well, take a look here on the, you know, right above me right now is one of the polls. I posted polls for all of these on our Twitter, so make sure you go follow us on Twitter. But you guys vote. A lot of you voted. Appreciate you. Keep. 72% said keep. 28% said fire. I know a lot of Raiders fans are pretty upset by it. But yeah, to me, this is a pretty obvious one, and I'm going to say keep. He signed a 10-year contract when he signed up, you know, huge deal. And, they were in on him for the long haul. You know, it was a proven coach. They don't want to mess around, play musical coaches, try to go find one that, also wouldn't be guaranteed. Really, no coach is guaranteed. They kind of got a rare opportunity, a rare opening where they can get a guy that is proven. And, yeah, he coached pretty poorly down the stretch. His red zone play calling needs to pick it up. Maybe a little too many design plays for Jason Witten, but Derek Carr also needs to pick it up. He needs to have a more consistent year. Earlier in the year, playing great football. I mean, ridiculous. But then second half of the year, it's kind of the same thing every year. He didn't play bad in the second half of the year, but I think Gruden gets all of the blame, you know, specifically with those red zone play calls that you know, again, we need to have more options on those play calls, but Carr throws the ball away a little too much for my liking, so maybe not all the blame for Gruden. I mean, look at the defense, the way the defense was coached with and without Paul Gunther, and just the young talent just really isn't there yet, needs time to develop. The defense let them down mainly. Gruden's got the system. I think he's growing too. You know, I see him adding more RPO to his game. So I think he's adjusting too. He has the right system. I think he's adjusting. Yeah, it's pretty obvious. They keep him. I don't even know if it'll be mentioned, but I don't know if he really should be on the hot seat even after next year. We'll see what they can do. They need a pretty good offseason. But the next one will be Frank Reich, who gets brought up quite a bit, and we'll take a look at the poll for Frank Reich. We get to see a lot of the other ones too here that we'll get to. And then 95.9% said keep. So yeah, this becomes a pretty obvious one. But people really weren't happy with Frank Reich at parts of the season, specifically the Steelers game, which was just last week, and the Colts now heading into Week 17 not only need a win, but they need a win. They might need a little help too, and you think they might be able to get that help, but who knows? But that really is all because they blew that Steelers game, and they were dominating that game. They were running well on the Steelers, and they kind of abandoned. You know, there's coaches that get conservative, and that's bad, and there's Frank Reich, who kind of just does the opposite of what's working sometimes. Not a lot of the time, not even the majority of the time, you know, but sometimes like that in a crucial moment. And, you know, that wasn't good, obviously. But yeah, 95.9% says keep, and I'm gonna go ahead and agree here. I'm gonna say they keep them. I think it's pretty obvious. To me, I still think they're somewhat in the early stages. You know, it's okay if this team's not winning a Super Bowl right now. You know, they actually might be a little bit ahead of schedule because they got a lot of cap space. They still don't really have the quarterback position, and Phillip Rivers has been playing good. not really so much in the fourth quarter of the Steelers game, but he's been playing better. But it's his first year with the Colts. Quarterback situation hasn't been set yet, hasn't been established yet. They're just adding some young guys through the draft. They just traded for DeForest Buckner. They got a lot of cap space. So I don't know if they were a team that just needed to win the Super Bowl right now. Everybody wants to, obviously, and their goal is to win, obviously, because they're a good team. But yeah, I don't know if there was a lot of pressure really on Reich. He's got to do a better job. He can't let that Steelers game, slip away, because at the end of the day, that could be the game that let them miss the playoffs. So that's going to hurt a bit, and that's going to make him potentially pop up for the hot seat in the future. But I don't think right now, for the reasons I explained. I still think they're somewhere early on in that process. Going into next year, they're going to be, a lot of pressure is going to be on them. They're going to have to win, not below those games, and they very well could be in the playoffs, make some noise. We'll see. But yeah, I think it's too early on for Frank Reich on the Colts. They're definitely going to give him more of a shot. We can move on to the next one here. Mike McCarthy's name has been brought up, and this one's surprising here. If we see let me pull it up a little bigger here. 56.1% said fire. So the fans think whether he should or they're predicting him to be fired. Not the best year for him. Mainly looking at. I look at it specifically a game like the Washington game not too long ago. Was that a Thanksgiving game? I believe so. And they kind of just blew it with some fake punt and play calls like that, going for it in certain situations. So that's been popping up. I know Kellen Moore's been involved with a lot of play calling though. I'm surprised this many people said fire. I didn't have to think too much about this one. They're going to keep him. They're definitely going to keep him. Well, first off, Jerry Jones, it took him forever to fire Jason Garrett. So, he could, maybe it's just applied to Jason Garrett, because he was a Cowboy. And, so, maybe he won't be attached to Mike McCarthy, but chances are he'll probably get attached to him. And they were hyped about that hire, Jerry Jones and company. They were very hyped about that. They're excited about that. And I think he kind of gets a pass with Dak Prescott getting hurt, Leo Collins, Tyrone Smith, all these guys getting hurt, and the defense mainly let them down. And what they're able to do down the stretch of the season here without all of those guys, they're starting to win games. They're starting to call better games. They're starting to put together an offense that's really not their offense, and that's actually pretty impressive. So I think with a full healthy Cowboys team, they could be a dangerous team. Mike McCarthy has proven at times when he has the weapons, he is a pretty good coach. So I think they're just getting started. They're still kind of learning, finding their identity, and trying to get their team healthy as well. So they're definitely going to keep him, and I think they should too as well. So I was surprised that people are voting to fire, but I guess he's not a likable guy. I wonder if that's mostly Cowboys fans that think that or what. Who knows? Next one, Mike Zimmer has actually been brought up a little bit because the Vikings are kind of known as one of the more disappointing teams on the year. Expected to make the playoffs, and they weren't a guarantee make the playoffs or anything. But the interesting thing is their offense. This is the best their offense has been, in some time, and they didn't make the playoffs. And Mike Zimmer, and that's because of their defense. Mike Zimmer being a defensive guy, kind of known as one of the better defensive coaches in all of football for some time. The defense lets him and the team down, and you can put some blame on Mike Zimmer. You can put some blame in the front office, handling the defense this offseason. But you can blame it on some injuries. They had some big guys that were in and out. Even Eric Kendricks, who missed the last couple games, last few games, that actually could have hurt them. They could have had a shot. But yeah, the defense got better. And, it brings up the question is it worth having a defensive coach in today's NFL? It brings it up. I wasn't really thrilled with Zimmer this year for the most part. 65.9%, so somewhat close, but most people are on board with him staying, the Vikings keeping him. And I'm going to agree with that. I know they're going to keep him here. They just extended him in the offseason, but yeah, they'll blame it on, it's a little bit of a turnaround for the defense. They need another year or two to figure that out. If he goes, what are they going to do with Kubiak? The offense is actually starting to turn it around. The offense played actually pretty damn well in the stretch of the season. So they want to keep it together. Their thinking process, their thought process is just get the defense healthy and have another offseason, and combine that with the way the offense is playing at the end of the season here. It could work out here. So they have full trust in Zimmer here. And yeah, they're definitely going to keep him. The only question is it worth having a defensive head coach? Because in an offensive era, but the way their offense is playing, I don't know if you want too much change there with the offensive staff. So there's really no reason to fire Zimmer there. But they got to do a better job here. Next year, obviously. And then next up, we got Zac Taylor, who was brought up a lot in the middle of the year. The Bengals just kind of really any team that's losing, that's kind of getting popped up, and people were really happy with his play calling at times. But 71.8% said keep. And I never thought he was going to, and that kind of answers that, but I never really thought that he would be fired even back when they were struggling. He was struggling. They're still early in that rebuild process. They just got Joe Burrow, then he got hurt. They got to work on the offensive line, the defense a little bit still in another offseason. So for all those reasons, I didn't think he would be fired. But now he's definitely not going to get fired because he's been impressive the last couple weeks when they've been winning. It's mainly due to their game plan. They don't have the best talent out there. They're hurt. Joe Burrow's hurt, obviously. And they've been game planning and just finding mismatches and holes in defenses, at a very solid level there. They've done a good job. So there's a lot of promise. If they go out and have a good offseason, Joe Burrow gets healthy, they get an offensive line, couple pieces in the offensive line, maybe a pass rusher on defense. It's going to be a sneaky team, and there's a lot of hope for Zac Taylor and company here. So we're on a streak with these guys being kept here. So nobody fired yet, but what do you expect? A lot of these guys, most of the coaches in the NFL aren't going to be fired. So, we're on a roll here, but we're going to get some down the line here still. But next, talk about Vic Fangio, and we'll see what the fans said about Vic Fangio. Somewhat close, not really. 62.9% said keep, and it's come out that they'll probably keep him. There's been some news that they'll probably keep him. But there was some hope for the Broncos this year. There was some hope, but then a lot of teams got hit with injuries, though. So not just the Broncos, but they got hit pretty bad with the injuries on both sides of the ball. Mainly, Cortland Sutton on offense, really, and Phillip Lindsay in and out of games. Drew Lock missed some time earlier in the year. Mainly defense, though, got beat up. And then Vic Fangio, the defense is supposed to be good. Kind of a Mike Zimmer situation. The defense is supposed to be a lot better. The Broncos a lot better than the Vikings this year defensively. But then you kind of get the pass because of the injuries. Cornerback group was depleted. No Von Miller as well. The corner group was rough. What happened there? I don't know. For me, what I think should happen, that's tough. That's tough, actually, because it's similar situation as Mike Zimmer. I'm not really in on the defensive head coaches right now. It's an offensive era, but Mike Zimmer kind of gets a pass because they have the kind of his offensive coaching staff, I think improved this year. But there was a lot of hype for, maybe this offense of the Broncos being high powered, and 1 week they look like that, 1 week they don't. So maybe they want to go the offensive route. So what they should do, I could debate that maybe they should move on. But what I think they do is I think they keep him. They kind of said, you kind of get the feeling, they didn't really say that, but they kind of get the feeling. Another thing I'm wondering is I don't know if Elway wants a guy or somebody to run the show offensively. That's kind of what I'm gathering. I don't really see him hiring a guy that's going to run the show offensively. I think he kind of has control a bit of that. Maybe I'm bold saying that. I don't know. I think he kind of wants to pick and choose because the coach is going to come in and say, I need this guy for my system. I want to run the offense this way. I don't, maybe Elway's on the hot seat. It's tough to see them getting fired or him getting fired there. Because of that, the attachment maybe, But yeah, I think he realizes that, or he thinks that he's built an offense. They went out and got crazy at that receiver position. They didn't have Cortland Sutton this year. I like him a lot. And they're kind of just a quarterback away, or Drew Lock hitting his potential away from being a really good team and staying healthy, obviously. So he's kind of thinking, we'll continue to build on the offense. We'll control that. Fangio, great defensive mind. He controls. So I think that's their thinking, and I think they're going to kind of give him a pass with the injuries this year. So all of that combined, I think they definitely keep him. But you can definitely debate on whether they should or not, and the same thing kind of goes for Elway. So that's an interesting one as well. On to the next one. Kliff Kingsbury, and you already saw mine. I popped. What did I do here? I'm messing up like crazy. The graphic. We're gonna blame it on the graphics guy, of course. So I'm saying keep Kliff Kingsbury, and you guys say that as well. I'm predicting they keep him, and I think they should either way. He's taking a lot of heat. He's taking a lot of heat this season because there was some situations where he's managing timeouts, managing the game. Fourth down decisions, play call decisions, run when you should pass, run Kyler Murray when you should, or don't run Kyler Murray when you should run him. Things like that. He's been a little sloppy in those categories this year. I know Cardinals fans, I think that 17.8% of fire Kliff Kingsbury might be Cardinals fans. There's some that probably say keep too, but they're still fairly early in the process. Kyler Murray just came in last year. It's still fairly fresh, fairly new team. It's a new system, a unique system, almost a college system for the NFL here. It's the right system for the players. They kind of put themselves in a situation where if you move on from Kliff Kingsbury, you're going to need to find a guy that has a similar system. You don't have to, but you could, and there's really not too many better options. You look at a guy like Lincoln Riley, which is appealing. I think that would be a better option, but, time and time again, he said he wants to stay at Oklahoma, but coaching Kyler Murray, coaching the NFL, could that be appealing? So I would understand a route like that, but it's going to be tough to find somebody that, it's going to be another gamble like Kingsbury. It's going to be somebody that's probably not as good, really, because he's got a good system. He's a good offensive mind. He needs to do a better job managing the game. But then the players could step up too. The players themselves have been inconsistent down the stretch here. And we'll see if they get in and out of the playoffs. If they're out of the playoffs here after week 17, then maybe he's a little more on the hot seat. But I still think they keep him. I had mine pop up by mistake already. Keep. And yeah, I think that's what they do there. And if you go get another good offensive mind, Eric Bieniemy, Brian Daboll, guys like that, it's a bit of a different system, and they can make it work, but there might be an adjustment period where they go down a little bit for a year. So the fan base won't be able to handle that, but maybe it's a good thing in the long run. But they built the players, they built the team based off this system. It's not that easy to find, to switch systems or find a coach with the same system that's actually better or even the same that matter, So, yeah, they're gonna keep him. And yeah, we already got that up. All right, moving on to the next one here. Matt Nagy. Let's see what the fans have to say about Matt Nagy. 63% says keep. Matt Nagy's it's kind of a funny one because most of the year it was fire, hashtag fire Matt Nagy. They went on a 6-game losing streak. I know the Bears fans most of them wanted Trubisky all along, and they wanted him back in, and they put him back in. They're winning, and the question is it the quarterback? Is it the system? It might be that they kind of switch schemes a little bit there, so that could be it as well. This is a tough one though, but now it sounds like it was coming out last week that Matt Nagy, people around the league think that the Bears will keep Matt Nagy, but that's if they're kind of in the playoffs. They might not be in the playoffs, and that's people around the league. What do the Bears actually think? It's a very tough one to predict. One I've been back and forth on. You see the fans say 63% keep, and I'm actually gonna go. I'm actually gonna go different here. I'm gonna say that I think they're gonna fire him, but again, I'm not overly confident about that. It's about 50-50, but I'm kind of leaning towards this because it makes the most sense here. Because I think you can't forget what's happened. Not just this year. They went on a 6-game losing streak this year. That can't happen. And that could be the reason they missed the playoffs. Obviously, just win one of those games. Don't go on a 6-game losing streak. He's an offensive-minded coach, and why did they go on a losing streak? Because of offense. Really, they just couldn't move the ball. They couldn't put up points. And we can't forget that it feels like they don't go on a 6-game losing streak every year, but it feels like the same thing's been happening where the offense kind of disappears, shut down, and we got an offensive-minded coach here. That, and now that, they're winning, why are they all of a sudden playing better on offense? Well, he's not even running the show. Lazer's running the show over there with his scheme. It's not even a Nagy scheme here. So, but maybe they want to keep him. Do they need to keep Nagy to be able to keep Lazer? So that brings up all that talk. What's Ryan Pace's situation? If Ryan Pace gets another shot, he might want a different coach to better himself. But if he gets fired, well, then either way, Nagy's going to get fired. And then what do you blame it on? We'll see if the Bears make or miss the playoffs. I guess that depends on that. If they make the playoffs, Matt Nagy I think he'll keep his job. And I'm not really I guess I kind of am predicting here, but I think just looking at who the favorites are, the Packers beating them and the Cardinals beating the Rams, most likely, I know two things need to happen, but maybe most likely just based on the favorites, I guess, of the games, maybe they will be out. But yeah, they kind of can't forget what happened. And then what do you blame it on? Why did they specifically go on that 6-game losing streak? And that was offense. And why specifically did the offense go on a 6-game losing streak? And the question of, was it Nagy's play calling? Was it just the scheme just stinks? Was it the quarterback stink? Was it because they benched Trubisky? Were they going to win some games in there? I know they played a little better competition than the Trubisky's playing right now, but would they have won a game or two in there with Trubisky? So it depends on what you blame it on. And I think a lot of the fans, especially the Trubisky supporters, blame it on the decision to put Foles in, which was Nagy's decision. You know, we know Pace is a Trubisky guy. Matt Nagy thought Foles would be more of his guy there, fit his system a little more. That really didn't work out. So I think if you blame the season on the Bears making Matt Nagy made a decision, then I think you should want him fired. So you kind of can go back and forth on what's going to happen here, but there's more things that point towards Matt Nagy to me being fired. All the reasons I explained. I know things are going a little better right now, but I don't know if he's the head coach, so he definitely deserves some credit. But I don't know if they want another kind of mediocre season or average, maybe a little bit above average, they make the playoffs. I don't know if they really want that. And I guess a lot rides on Pace, his situation too. So it's definitely one to watch out for here. What happens here in Week 17? What happens on Monday? Upcoming Monday. Maybe it won't even be on Monday. Sometimes it's not, but that's an interesting one. I think you just can't forget what's been going on with the Bears there. Doug Pederson, very interesting one as well, because the Eagles, known as one of the more disappointing teams on the year, they especially with the Cowboys injuries, you would think that they should make the playoffs. I mean, come on. I know they had a lot of injuries as well, but the Cowboys had more costly ones, and the NFC's being bad. They should have, most people think that way. They should have made the playoffs here, won the division, and they're the first team out. All three teams have a shot here besides them going into Week 17. There's a lot of interesting play calling decisions, game plan, and the stubbornness, I guess, of benching Carson Wentz there. And I know the ownership wasn't happy with that. They wanted Hurts in earlier, and I think Howie Roseman, the front office, drafted Hurts for a reason, or they liked him, and then maybe the coaching staff, Doug Pederson, weren't really on the same page. They didn't really like him as much. They're attached to Carson Wentz. Who knows? I think not everyone's on the same page. So those could be reasons he could be fired. The fans, very tight, very close. Or so an hour left on this too. 51.5% in favor of keeping. So that's pretty interesting. I think they end up keeping him here. And it's interesting, too, because if you look at it, if you watch or listen to his press conference on Monday, it was after they lost and got eliminated in the playoffs, it seemed like he was making a pitch to keep his job. That's what it felt like. It was weird. So that kind of makes you think he might be fired, but I still don't think so. He helped him win a Super Bowl. It's a great offense system. He has a good system. And it was a little bit of a sloppy season with the offensive line injuries. There was injuries everywhere, really, and deciding on what quarterbacks in and out, and they'll have to make that decision next year. If front office and ownership are locked in on who they want to play quarterback, and they think Peterson's not on the same page, then they're not going to fire him. So a lot plays into this one as well. But I think that it's tough to find a replacement. Nobody's guaranteed, and this guy's proven to win a Super Bowl, and he's proven to have a pretty good system. His play calling's got to be better. He can't be as stubborn, but his team needs to be healthier as well. The defense, a game they lost against they scored it up against the Cardinals. They put themselves in position to win that game. That's offense. He's in charge of the offense. Cowboys mainly to blame what was the defense as well. So I think they'll keep him. I still think that, we talk about he's maybe attached to certain quarterbacks, but I think the front office and ownership might be a little attached to him, and it's understandable because they won a Super Bowl. So I'm with the fans, even though it's a tight one, in keeping. But then next we got Doug Marrone. Let's see what the fans say about Doug Marrone. 78.2% says fire, so a lot of people on board with him being fired. Then it brings up, did he get a fair shot? The Jaguars, where it kind of felt like, we were calling them Tanksonville for a reason here. Felt like they were tanking a bit. They weren't putting themselves in the best position to win. They were okay with that. The quarterbacks, getting 3 quarterbacks played, and deciding to play Glennon, to secure the first pick, situations like that. And the talent just wasn't there. They traded for a bunch of picks for a reason. They traded players for a reason. They're rebuilding. It's no secret. It's no secret. So does he get a pass because the talent wasn't there? And they've kind of shown they've been attached to him maybe a little bit. And now, do they trust him under maybe with Trevor Lawrence with the future? But I'm on board with you guys. I think they fire him. I thought it was an upset. It was a shocker that he wasn't fired last year, and it was kind of one more chance. Now, does this count as the chance for the reasons I explained? They don't really get much of a chance at this roster with this team. So does this count? But I thought he was on very thin ice as it was. And they, the front office, this group gathered all these picks, and they weren't afraid to fire their GM, so I don't think they'll be afraid to do this. I don't know if, Trevor Lawrence is a guy that you just can't ruin. Just let him go out there and ball. Let's get the right coaching staff there. So they want somebody that's they're a little more confident with, so I think they'll fire him. And, the losing attitude's kind of attached to this, even though it's not all Doug Marrone's fault. He doesn't really have a losing attitude, but the whole thing has kind of a losing attitude. So I think they fire him. I think they move on here. Shouldn't really be much of a surprise. Move on to Adam Gase. The fans, a whopping 92.9% say fire. That's really not a surprise to me. Most this year, I was actually thinking they keep him. I was thinking that, because when they hired him, they were in love with him. They kind of wanted to give him the keys to everything. They really like, his philosophy, his idea of building a team, building an offense. They were very high on him. So even if bad seasons like this occur, it's still hard to remove that idea, that attachment a little bit. And it felt like they knew, they had some injuries. They had guys in and out. It kind of felt like at some point they made an agreement that, maybe, this season, they kind of knew that this season wasn't going to go well, and maybe a pass here and give them another shot with a better team, because it's a pretty bad team they put out in the field. So I was thinking they were actually going to keep him. But now kind of a last second, flip here. I think not only fire. When you fire Adam Gase, you shit can him. All right, you got to shit can this guy, and I think you can't forget what has went on. And his resume isn't really good either. He's offensive guy. They can't get the offense going. He's not developing players right. They got a whole disaster. He's calling plays. He's not calling plays. He's lying about not calling plays, whatever. It's a disaster. The players complaining about what's going on in practice. They never seen anything like it. It's a losing attitude, losing season. It doesn't seem, again, back to the players. It doesn't seem like they're really happy about what goes on in practice, how this team is put together, how this team is ran. And they can't forget the disaster that went on, and they can't really expect him to lead the way and make the right choices. I think Gase has been making the choices on who to pick, who to add to the team. So, most of the year I thought they were going to keep him. I really thought so. Not that they should fire him. I've never been they should have never hired him in the first place. I said that at the time. Never been a Gase guy, but I don't know if this one is so clear cut actually, because of those reasons I explained. But you got to shit can this guy. You just gotta. At this point, I'm thinking they're going to do it because you just have to. It just has to be done. You can't forget. And then we got one more here. We got Anthony Lynn, of the Chargers, which is a very interesting one. And then here was the original post here. We'll have more. You guys will vote for who will win each way of the playoffs, all the playoff games, maybe some awards, and that'll pop up in upcoming videos too. So you're going to want to follow that Twitter. You see it right there at GoDelsNFL. But Anthony Lynn, 78.4% said to fire. This is a really tough one. This is actually probably the toughest one. In most of the year, he's blown some games himself. The coaching has blown some games. Some decision making, clock man, everything, game management in general. But the rapid development of Justin Herbert is maybe one of the most insane things of the year. He's a guy that has raw talent, ridiculous arm talent, but it might take some time. But he is lights out right away, like ridiculous, the best rookie quarterback. And a lot of things were in his head at Oregon too. And to get that out of him and to have him in the right system, the playbook is great. Play calling sometimes is great, sometimes is very poor. But the playbook, the system is so perfect for Justin Herbert and the development of him. All of that, credit goes to Anthony Lynn and company here. So they deserve credit there where credit is due. And if you take Anthony Lynn away, do you kind of hurt Justin Herbert? That kind of in the back of your mind. He has the talent, so you could say the talent just doesn't go away, and I would agree with that. But then you got to have the right system, the right playbook as well. So this one is tough. This one is very, very tough. I think it's a 50-50 one here. And I'm going to stick with you guys here. I'm going to say they fire him. Because, they lost so many close games, and when you lose close games, you can take an educated guess, a very good educated guess, that it was because of coaching. Usually when you lose close games, coaching is the reason. Sometimes it's a last-minute mistake, too, by a quarterback or whatever. And that would be right that it was on coaching. You cannot forget the situations that this staff gave the players. They put them in. And they should have won a lot more games. I mean, even going back to good teams earlier in the year, like the Saints game, they should have won, a lot more games. And you can't forget that. And you also, a big reason here, again, you don't want to stunt the growth of Justin Herbert because they deserve some credit. They don't want to change the playbook, change the system too much, so he gets hurt a little bit. But there's some good options out there. I like a guy like Brian Daboll for them. I like a guy, I really like him for them. I like Eric Bieniemy, guys like that. Those are two that stand out mainly. And if they'll kind of get an idea, can we get this guy? If we can get one of these guys, we can move on from Anthony Lynn. If we can't, then we'll keep Anthony Lynn. So I think they get the idea. I think they're appealing spot too with Justin Herbert. I think they'll get the idea that they can get one of those guys so they actually can get better here and then be a playoff team and continue to grow. So those are the reasons, because you can't forget the mistakes that happen in the year and the other options where you can get better. For that reason, I think they fire him, but it's a toss-up. And you see Derwin James tweet something earlier today, actually, just before I went to record this, that he believes, the players, Anthony Lynn's a likable guy. It seems like he's a good motivator. He has right maybe game plan to get his players ready. So he's definitely a good guy and, very thought highly of in those categories. So that's another reason to keep him. The players probably like him a lot. You see Justin Herbert likes him. You can see that. So it's tough. It's a 50-50 one. I can debate both sides. So, but both myself and the fans are on board with the firing. But I've been back and forth on this one for most of the year. It's just been for sure thing. Is he going to be fired yet? Is he going to be fired yet? Then they start winning a little bit, and then you start to recognize that he deserves a lot of credit for Justin Herbert. And it's kind of mind blowing how he's been able to play this good. We knew he had the tools, but to be able to do this and be able to play like a veteran quarterback at times is ridiculous. So again, these guys deserve a ton of credit for that. So. I enjoyed making this video. I enjoyed that you guys, I like the fact that you guys played along. You guys can play along with more videos coming up this next week with playoff predictions, playoff matchup predictions, and then award picks and, things like that. You guys play along. So you got to make sure you follow that Twitter so we can do these things. But let me know your thoughts in the comments now. If you didn't get to play along, if you changed your mind, on things or whatever, you can let us know in the comments. You can list the certain ones, all of them, whatever, and tell me if they should keep them or fire them. I guess we can debate. You can talk about what they should do and what's going to happen. This is more of a prediction video, I thought, but I kind of gave my thought on what they should do as well. Really enjoyed this one. Smash that like button if you enjoyed it as well. Subscribe, turn notifications on, all that be much appreciated. Cannot wait for the playoffs and the playoff coverage, even the offseason coverage. But that's going to do it for this one. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.